Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Boxing Social podcast in association with Betfred. Make sure you share, like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest boxing news and views. Today I am delighted to be joined by former lightweight world champion Anthony Crolla. How are you?
Ali, I'm good. Obviously, next door's the gym. We're busy now, we've got the kids in, or we will have shortly. So yeah, we're in the bar here, but yeah, unfortunately it's not open, so there's no drinks for any of us. But yeah, no, I'm good. Now,
you are a trainer now, you are retired from boxing, boxing trainer. We'll go into that in a bit, but we'll just start off sort of looking back at your career and sort of your memories of first getting into boxing, sort of how old you were.
Okay, so first getting into boxing, my dad was a former professional boxer, and he'd sort of he'd long been retired, but he had a set of keys to Fox ABC, which is now next door, which, yeah, it's sort of gone full circle, but he would just sort of stay fit there. He'd have a set of keys, and then he'd be there when the gym was open, and there was probably no one to mind me, so I'd get dragged along, and, you just pick up little bits, and also I was a kid who was like, I was doing something every night of the week, and I just took to it pretty natural, so it was probably when I first walked into a gym, I think it was probably 8 or 9, and then so I probably picked up the basics, and like I say, I was a real sort of sporty kid. I was full of energy, and then my dad's work hours changed, so he'd stopped going, and then I always remembered you had to be 11 to fight, and I always wanted to fight. Like I used to, on a Sunday morning, my dad would open the gym up sometimes, and I'd always beat my cousins up and stuff like that, and I'd love it, and I thought I always want to fight. And like you say, you're around from early on. I was like the Rocky films I loved, and everything like sort of boxing related when you grow up in a boxing household sort of. And then I remembered you had to be 11 to fight, and anyway, I remember just before my 11th birthday, my dad would go to a thing called the X-Boxers, and Jimmy Lewis was like, how's Anthony, when's he coming back to the gym? And Jimmy's in his mid-80s now, and he's still here. We'll probably go next door, we'll probably see him in a bit. And my dad come home and he told me, I'm 11, I can nearly fight now. And I was playing football at the time, I was doing cross-country, and I was a decent cross-country runner. But football, I was never good enough to make it at any kind of decent level, being realistic. And I look back, so I thought, I give the boxing a go, and I remember getting on the bus. My mum took me on the bus. It was in sort of, I was playing Ancoats. Well, it was Ancoats. Then this was before Ancoats turned posh, and I went, and then I was just hooked ever since then. So it was just before my 11th birthday, and within a matter of weeks, sort of, I was like, so you get your medical card. So I wouldn't say I was a natural. I was a natural, but I'd sort of half had an idea anyway from when I'd gone past it. I just had the basics, and I was hooked ever since. Yeah, and I was with the Fox Amateur Boxing Club right through my career, and it was only a small club, but sort of real tight gym, and it was some great times as an amateur. I always, do you know what, Ali? I thought, as an amateur, I felt like I was pretty harshly treated, if I'm honest. As in, like, I was from a small club, didn't get him a chance, sort of internationally, really. And it was hard because I'm not an idiot. Where at the time I turned over at my weight was one of the very best amateurs we've ever produced in Frankie Gavin. So rightfully so. Frankie was going to everything. He was the number one in the UK. He was the number one in the world. But then he was having troubles with the weight and stuff like that, and I was half thinking, I was just sort of going to squads, and I get it. I get, like, he was the banker at weight, but I was thinking, what am I sort of waiting around here for now and then? Yeah. But yeah, no, the amateur, there's people who sort of boxed as amateur, and they were some of the best times of my life. There's some of the best times of my life. You'd have schoolboy championships, national champion. And you'd see some of the good lads. And I remember in my year alone, sort of the year, I remember winning the national schoolboy title. And on the day, there was myself, there was Billy Joe Saunders, there was Amir Khan, Frankie Gavin, Stephen Smith. What's that? He'd just finished him. But the amount of fighters who'd gone on to like win world titles or win major titles as professionals. So no, they was good times. The amateur days are brilliant when you look back on, because you feel part of a team. Do you know what I mean? And it's like this gym now, it's like it's packed out 5 nights a week, and like kids off the estate. I think, as you can see if you go around there, I don't know if you got a tour of the famous Limeside estate, but it's a bit of a crazy estate, and crime is a problem on it, but it's a great place for a gym. And it's now there's kids in here now who were like representing the club since we've moved here, and it's good. Like, we've seen them coming in the beginners class. We have a few beginners class every week, and you know, we don't charge them and all like that, and then they come in, and some of them have like developed from that, now representing the club. And they're different young people. Like, there's a bit more respect there from them, and I don't mean they have gained respect. They absolutely have gained respect, but it's how they are to other people as well. And I think amateur boxing, it gets a lot of bad press, but for me, it's one of the greatest. I don't know. It probably is the greatest sport for me in like what it does for young kids. Not everyone's going to be a world champion. Not everyone's going to turn professional. But yeah, the amateur boxing, it helps so many.
Do you feel like when you're saying you didn't get the sort of opportunities that you should have got, maybe, were you wanting and sort of eager to turn pro?
You know what? No, I wanted to stay amateur. I wanted to stay amateur right at first, and he was like, "Well, I'm not talking about just when I was a senior. I remember like as a junior, and I'd go camps, and then I remember once, and I was friends with this lad, and he was a good lad, and we'd boxed, and we was at a squad. At the weekend, and we was actually fighting each other on the Thursday. So normally you'd spar, but obviously those two was kept apart. But we was cool, like we was having dinner together and all that, and he was a great lad. And I remember I boxed him on his own club show on the Thursday, so 5 days later. And so we'd been on the squad all weekend, and I boxed him on his club show. We had a great fight. I beat him, well. And then a few days later, he got a phone call to go to the Junior Europeans or something like that, and I thought, what the do you know what I mean? And I thought, I was pretty certain like I'd done well on the camp, everything like that, and maybe they was looking for something then. But then I also found out like later, I remember like at the time, like one of the coaches, he had a big problem with the college I went with and stuff like that, and I'm sure the guy would it, but like he might say different, but I know for a fact that didn't help. Do you know what I mean? And then they're always seeing politics, so I'm going, oh, amateur boxing this, and it's not like internationally I'm backpedaling here. But I mean, like internationally, it stinks of corruption. Like, I know there's people like Olympic Games, and amateur boxing's in a real bad place for Olympic. Might lose its spot at the Olympics. I remember my mate Callum Smith should have gone to the Olympics. He was scandalous. He was badly robbed, but nothing was made of it in. What year was that? It was 2012, wasn't it? Let me think. Was it 20? Yeah, it was 2012. And listen, thankfully for Callum, it's worked out brilliant for him, and boxing's been good to him. He's had some huge nights, but it was scandalous how he never went to the Olympics. But nothing was ever made of it, because it was at a qualifying tournament. I think it was in like Turkey or something like that, where you had to watch it online. But it was very corrupt like that. But I'm just when. You've been, when you're going to like sort of a working men's club and there's kids there having the first bout and stuff like that, they're some of the greatest times of my career when I think about it now. Beer getting spilt on your vest or on your shorts on the way to the ring, or the smoke before the smoking ban coming, jeez. It was, and there was some venues, like you couldn't see where the ring was or you was going until you got there, and it's mad, like there's so many you'll be able to relate to me, like with a smoking ban. It was like you'd come out and you'd get home and you give your mum your kid, and she's like, face stinks. It was brilliant. You'd be buzzing if you was boxing in a leisure centre, because you wouldn't be inhaling all the smoke and stuff like that. But nah, great times. When I think of amateur boxing, it's what's it called? It's an unbelievable sport. Like at a certain level, and I really hope it does get sorted for the, so we don't lose out the Olympics, because I think when you look at the Olympics, arguably the most famous athlete ever, Muhammad Ali, come from the Olympics, but superstars that are around now, they've come from Olympic boxing, and it's really sad to stay. And I pray that it can be saved, but I mean, being honest, it's not looking good right now.
Yeah, it's not looking good at all. I mean, having enjoyed being an amateur so much, what gave you the decision then to turn pro and to actually start on that journey?
Okay, so what gave me sort of the decision was, at the time I'd just finished sort of college, and I was thinking, I want to get a little bit of international experience, because I was only 19, and it was sort of, I ended up having my first fight the month before I was 20. I think it was the anniversary the other day actually. I got tagged in it on Twitter, yeah. So it was what it was, and I thought I want to try and pick up a bit of an international experience. But again, I just thought, I'm not getting a chance here. And then an offer come in for me to turn professional with Frank Warren. I just thought, well, I'll try and get a head start in the professional ranks, and that was really what I did. I thought, well, I knew I wasn't getting funding or nothing like that, and it was either right, get a job, sort of, and then I thought, if I get the job, will my training suffer because I won't be able to train full time, or I will, but it'll be crazy. And I was like, yeah, and that was it. That was it. That sort of done it. I thought I'll get a head start in my professional career. So I turned in 2006, but I was only, like, say I was 19. It was just before I was 20.
And
right, wait, 2006. Oh, 2006.
What anniversary?
Yeah, just before I was 20, yeah.
Okay. And when you turned pro, a lot of people were talking about you. They're excited.
Yeah.
You know, people in Manchester were excited about you.
Yeah.
And then things were going well.
Yeah.
Sorry to start on this bit.
I've had this. I've had this for a second. I still get it now. So do you want me to finish it here?
Yeah,
so okay, I think I won my first 8 fights, and I had a fair few stoppages in there, and I was getting a lot of publicity and stuff like that. And anyway, I boxed on. It was Amir Khan was fighting a Danish lad, Martin Danson or something like. It was anyway. It was in the ITV days.
Was it your first TV fight?
Yeah, so it gets better. Yeah, like, so I had the odd little highlights, 10 seconds at the end. My granddad, God bless him, he passed away after my third fight, but he would stay up all night, and sometimes he'd see about 5 seconds of me, like, at the end, an highlight from the fight, saying, "Oh, Anthony Crolla, blah blah blah." And this was my first TV slot, and it was like ITV2, I think. They showed me live. And anyway, I was boxing Youssef Alameda. Youssef Alameda was like, he was a journeyman, but he was at the time, he was a bit of like a step up in the journey. It was my first 8-rounder, and like, it was seen as a bit of a step up 8-rounder. And with him, it was, we're going to put you on ITV2 and stuff like that. And I was thinking, it's like, so everyone back in the day, it was probably Facebook when I was on it. I was going to say, yeah, MySpace had probably gone then. It wasn't that long ago. And I was like, yeah, tune in everyone. I'm here. I'm getting shown on TV, this and that. And yeah, so he was a journeyman user, but he was also a part-time ice cream man. So as you can imagine, all the Mr. Whippy jokes come and this and that. And then, yeah, next thing, and listen, it sounds so excuses. I shouldn't have boxed. But I did fight, so that's my own fault and decision. I ended up a bit ill after the fight, but anyway, I got beat over 8 rounds, and it was like, wow. It was at this time, especially the local people thought, "Oh, Crolla, he's going to be this, he's going to be that," and I got beat. And to my luck, Amir Khan won early, so they also showed me again on ITV. So it's got shown twice. I got shown twice. So yeah, my first bit of fame and that. It probably wasn't the best and big cut, and it was just just a nightmare. It was a nightmare. But what I learnt very quickly, there was people I sort of learnt who was there for the ride and who wasn't. People disappeared, and you like you say, it was, I'd say it was a lesson. It was a harsh lesson. Whether I underestimated Youssef, whether I'd say I'd done things wrong for sure, or but it was very humbling. It was very humbling when, like I say, you're getting, the Mr. Whippy jokes, you got beef meant to be this, you just got to be off such a body. Obviously, Yusuf didn't have the best record, but it was an handful. It was a real sort of handful, and so I went then from being this top prospect. Next, the fight after that, I ended up boxing. I might be wrong. I think it was when Amir lost to Breedis Prescott. And I went on like the very last show of the night at the MEN Arena. And I was probably lucky, just like my professional debut. That main event went earlier. I might not have got on. Like sort of the first. I was going on floater, like where you could go. It's a floater for anyone who doesn't know. Live floater there. If there's a few early finishes, you'll go on just before the main event, or when there's a good crowd in there. If there's no early finishes, then bang, you're going on after the main event when the cleaners are away and just whoever's come to watch you.
Yeah, it could be great or it could be terrible. You might not actually fight.
It could be fantastic, yeah. But I was probably lucky I boxed, but it was just there, and then after that, it was just, it was humbling. But I said I learned very close. There was people who was in it a long run and who wasn't. I remember sat in the McDonald's on outside Bolton Arena or in the drive-through with like my best mate, and he was going, well, you know what, you're going to look at this in a few years. I was probably crying into my Big Mac, and you know what, it won't be such a big thing. Somehow you'll think it was a blessing, and it stuck with me, and I remember that. Do you know what I mean? And I remember sort of going out straight after it and sort of trying to face the music, to everyone, and I banged up and stuff like that. But yeah, it was humbling. It was humbling. Do you know what I mean?
What was the sort of comeback from that? You had to get fights in under your belt to get back to winning ways before you could start stepping up again.
It was. What do you mean, sort of? The change in... How did you find it coming back from that? And it was almost sort of a restart. It was hard because it was like I say, I went from being this prospect to people who didn't really know boxing, thinking, he's going to be world champion, to sort of people sort of stopped having that interest, and those people stopped coming to watch me box. I've always done all right with tickets, but there's a lot of people who stopped coming to watch me. And listen, do you know what, Ali? People go, do you know what? They wouldn't have been there or whatever, and the same people who stopped coming to watch me started buying tickets again off me again, when things started going well, and I was like, I probably could have easily been like, no, pick someone else, but I'm like, no, because they probably wanted someone to get behind, to take them on this journey, to try and, you want to see someone, we want to follow a journey to the world title. If I'm getting beat off an ice cream man, God bless, they're probably not going to happen. It's probably not going to happen. I'm not an idiot. Obviously, I boxed Yusuf after it. I put it right. But it was, I just felt like I become sort of one of many fighters, and people sort of stop treating you the same, and but that was it. But I think what changed it, a big thing, and I say it all the time, the biggest sort of influence, the biggest sort of change on my career. So obviously, like, out there, I'd lost to Gary Sykes in an English eliminator, and I was thankful sort of for what Anthony Farnell done for me. He spent a lot of time with me, worked with me, and at the time, he only would train Frank Warren fighters, and I just felt I needed a change. And at the time, Hatton Promotions had started, and I just felt I needed a change, and then the offer was sort of on a plate for me there from them, and and it was basically I looked for a new coach, and I bumped into, well, I didn't bump in, that's a lie, I didn't bump into Joe Gallagher. I'd always sort of stayed in touch with him, but he was the man who I phoned and asked him, and I always remember phoning him, and he said, and you know what he says, Joe had always rated me from being a kid. We first met when I was 12 years old, and he was in the opposite corner. With a lad, and I beat his lad in like the area semi-finals or something like that. And he's a good lad, and I remember Joe coming up to me going, it's like, I always remember before the fight, Joe was warming this kid up before that, but I just wasn't bothered, and like, the kid looked good on the pads and all that, and I was just sat there like, just oblivious to it all, and I was just sort of the attitude thinking, I'm going to jab your head off. Do you know what I mean? And then Joe, so anyway, we fought, and I won well, and Joe came up to me saying, you're a very good lad, you, and he was like, you'll get all the way to the national final, you. And I did, and I got to the national final. I should have won it, really. I was a bit unlucky, but I'd got to the national final in my first season in the schoolboys, and I'd always stayed. I'd always speak to him at shows, and I remember him saying on the phone, you know what, Anthony, thanks for this opportunity. He says, I've always wanted to work with you. I won't let you down. And he certainly didn't. Do you know what I mean? I'll always say it, and people. And I watched the podcast she did with Joe, and Joe is like, Joe's mad. Joe is absolutely bonkers at times, and I say that to him where I think, Joe, man, you're mad. And I did like when we was fighting and when I was fighting and stuff. But one thing he's obsessed where he's proper obsessed where he just wants the best for his lads, possibly too much for his lads and girls, obviously now, because he's done an amazing job with Natasha, but he did. And even like when I spoke to Matt Macklin, and Matt went around, Matt moved coaches like pretty often, and he went, Joe got the best out of me, out of everyone. Joe had me boxing the best, and whether it was the mind games he'd play and stuff, like sometimes those mind games, I felt like, do you know what I mean? But now I look back, I know why he done them. At the times, I probably felt like I could kill him, but he had his reasons for doing it, and he'd become, and now I'm a coach, I think I can't pretend I'm nowhere near as hard working as Joe. Like, I think I work hard and people go, you're non-stop. But as a coach, no, I'm nowhere near as hard working as him, and how we'd study opponents at all levels, do you know, coming through. And I try and do a bit, I'm probably doing myself a bit of injustice there. I'm not like lazy, but he was obsessed. I remember like, before he become a full-time coach, I remember like something like every other week, he'd have to do shifts at the airport. And he'd go like a full day and a bit without sleep, you know, because he'd come straight from the airport either to the track or to the gym with us. And I think, wow, I don't know, that's some love and passion for the game. But yeah, I think Joe got me believing how good I could be. Like, I always believed in myself, but I thought I did. But he brought that into me, and sort of, he gave me, I always had a good engine, Ali. I was always fit. But Joe went, no, he's like, you've got an unbelievable engine, but you've got no gears. And then he took me on the track, and then he just sort of put this belief in me, and then anything he would say, I'd believe it, and I would do it. But yeah, no, sort of, I think the main person for the change in mentality, in performance, for sure, was and a bit of maturity as well. Like I say, I didn't want to turn professional at 19. I wasn't ready. Like, we all know there was lads. I was a boy, and I'd done well as an amateur. I'd won ABA title and I'd boxed for my country, but I was a boy. Do you know what I mean? We all know, like, when we're at school, like, there'll be certain lads or girls who are mature than others. I wasn't that. I've still, do you know what I mean? I still can't grow a beard. That's why the Beffy DeMarco's had to stay strong for all these years. But no, I was a boy, do you know, so, but it was just because I felt from what's happening at the amateur, I was getting that disillusion with it all. That was one of the reasons. But I don't regret nothing in my career, because I believe there's been lessons from each and every one of them.
When you started sort of progressing and winning the titles, what was that like? You know, did you always have the goal of you were going to be world champion, you were going to become world champion, and that's the sort of path you were going to take?
I always believed I'd become a world champion, and I know, and I'll say this to anyone now, it almost doesn't matter how good you are. You need that little bit of luck as well to be a world champion. There's plenty of fighters, loads more talented than me, better fighters than me, who've not become a world champion because they're probably not had that luck. But again, if I'm going back to Yusuf, if I'm losing to an ice cream man, me saying I'm going to be world champion, I probably sound an idiot. I probably sound a delusional idiot. Do you know what I mean? It's come a long way, sort of, from them when I looked like that. But I think I remember winning my first title, and I boxed someone who I looked up to as a kid greatly, and I saw him the other month actually for the first time, and he's doing well. And Andy Morris, I proper looked up to this lad in the amateurs, and I was like a massive fan of his. And anyway, I beat him for the English title, but that probably, I had a few times in my career where it was, listen, if you don't win this, you might be starting work Monday morning, do you know what I mean? But that was it, and sort of winning those titles, I think, I always say, once you win a title, it's like you automatically become 20% better or something like that. If you believe in yourself, and that was it. And then I won a British title, and that meant loads to me, the British title, because, like I said, my father was a professional boxer, and I know anyone who knows boxing knows how beautiful the British title is, and I'll always remember it like being I always remember changing rooms. I knocked out a good lad called John Watson in Liverpool, and it was mad. Like, the Smiths, they'd not been in the gym that long, but I knew him for years, and like sparring and stuff, and it was good. Like, I remember him just all being in, and like my dad being in, and they was helping me get my boots off and all that and stuff like that at the time. Like, we'd had a good fight, and I was like, I think they'd all won big on the betting and stuff like that. They have bet over anything and stuff, and it was like, you've been in the Olympia, he was in the Olympia a few days. It's not the nicest of settings, but it was in this cold, bloody, freezing cold, like, changing rooms. And it was the Manchester Derby, the famous day when Rooney got the overhead kick. And it was just like the perfect day, and I'm sat there, and I remember seeing my dad like showing his British title, and I was proud as punch, like, never tell me that, but he was. And yeah, it was. But they're just great times like that. I can't say, I was like, that's like one of the greatest memories, being in Olympia, like this cold, damp. I can't even call it a shithole, because I love the place. I genuinely love the Olympia. I've boxed there loads of times as an amateur and professional. It's always been good to me as well. But yeah, I just believe with a title, fighter grows, and that's sort of what it did to me. And like, even defending a British title, I went to Scotland. I boxed my mate Willie Limond, and that was a weird one, because it was hard, because Willie's not just in boxing, Willie's one of the best people I've ever met, and it was mad, because I went a few years before, I'd gone down sparring Ricky Burns as a sparring partner, and I stopped at Willie's house, and it's crazy, when you go full circle again. I remember his little kids had come and see this, and there was little kids. There's great little kids in the tear about, and mess about with him and stuff. And a few years later, we was fighting and stuff like that, and I could hear him ringside and stuff. And it was horrible. Do you know what I mean? It was horrible. I was beating my mate, and then now I ended up doing the corner on the professional debut on another fight for that same son who was ringside. We was watching his dad, and they come in after it and see me and stuff. And yeah, it was mad. It was just, I was like, it was crazy. I remember driving home, and me and Joe driving home, and just I was buzzing, and British title in the back. I was going back to my mum and dad's. I was living in bunk beds with my little brother, and it was just, I was on telly earlier that night. I was going back to the bunk beds. It was a mad time. It was a mad time, but like fond memories. Do you know what I mean?
So obviously there, highs from your career, thinking about the titles, and, at that stage things are going well. I do want to talk to you about someone who's a friend now as well, is the Kieran Farrell fight.
Yeah.
Obviously you won. Shortly after the fight, he collapsed and ended up in hospital, and it actually ended his boxing career that night.
Yeah. Do you know what, Ali? That was the darkest time of my career. Darkest time of my life. I mean that. It was horrible. It was. Do you know what? Right. So with that again, that was one of those where I'd come off a loss, and that was one of them where if I would have lost that, there's a job as well known, like there's a job waiting for me Monday morning. And and with you've been the bowlers, and you think the Olympia's cold. Listen, the bowlers, December, it was snowing I think that night as well, and it was ice cold. And I boxed Kieran, and it was. I genuinely believe Kieran would have been a champion without a doubt, because he's work on the roads and stuff like that, and he was just a strong little man, and he come in there and I thought, oh my God, he was so strong, but he was a student of the game, and I think, you know, I think he's probably a bit too obsessed with boxing. I think Kieran would probably admit that. But do you know what? We had a great fight. We had a great fight for the English title, and do you know, I believe if it would have been on, I remember it was on an app at the time. Dave Caldwell was promoting, and I've never really watched it back, to be honest. It probably upsets me too much, to be honest. But with it was an unbelievable fight. You know, we had a fantastic fight, and anyway, at the end of the fight, Kieran, I saw him and then this was before the decision. I saw him start waiting, and I saw him looked over in the corner, and he collapsed. And I was like, wow, like something's not. So I've gone from this, just had a great fight. I'm waiting on the decision. I feel I've won, but then it just went to worry, and I was waiting around, and the next thing I'm seeing him get stretchered out the ring, and I've said it before, but then his mum, this woman, I didn't know it was his mum at the time. She was clinging to her son's hand, and she was breaking her heart, and I thought, it stuck with me for ages. It stuck with me for ages, where I couldn't get this picture out of my head. She was like, Jesus, she was going out the bowlers, like clinging to her son's hand, and I was thinking, what has gone on there? And then at the time, I'm still waiting for the decision, and I'm thinking, but it was weird. I'm not just saying that. I was a bit like, I can't remember that bit, and I think I remember saying to the referee, I was like, what's going on, like, and then wait for the decision anyway, and I was just like, I can't remember. All I could think of was that thing, and then went home, and I remember just being up all night, just looking at my phone, and then you're hearing things and people saying, oh, if you're weird, or do you know when there's Chinese whispers, and then you hear him, and it was horrible, and I couldn't, it was mad, I couldn't go the next day. I couldn't go the next day. I didn't see him for a long time after it. And he says, sorry, I probably needed that cooling off time as well. But it stayed with me. It stayed with me for ages. And I remember Joel said to me, for a good, I don't know how long, a good year or so, he said, it just changed me in the gym. He said, I'd like lost a bit of that sort of fire, that sort of instinct, what a fighter needs. And I didn't know it did, and then when I look back now, it probably did. It was just, it was hard, because Kieran was one of them. He was obsessed by boxing, and it was like took away from him, and now it's like he's absolutely flying now. He's got a great little gym, and he works like, his fighters, and then some of he's got a young girl, Emily Whitworth, European Junior Champ. She's an unbelievable talent, and he's bringing fighters through from scratch, and he'll have many champions. But I remember, like, the first day I went to see him, it was like, when you sort of don't want to do something, and I thought, all right, I agreed to it, and he started being in the gym at this time, and it was weird. I asked what the postcode was, and I started driving towards it, and I wanted every excuse to turn around, and I think I just threw my phone in the back, because I thought, I can't make an excuse up, pull over and use the phone then. And I drove there, and I was like, I remember walking into the gym a bit, feeling all sheepish and that, and then we spoke for about an hour and a bit, and then after that we've just become mates ever since. And it was it's weird, because although that night probably saved my boxing career, it was the worst night of my boxing career as well, without a shadow of a doubt. Nothing comes close. And it's mad, because Kay's brother Nathan, I remember on the way to the ring we had a few words sort of back and forth, meaning, but like now I've got so much respect for him, and we always talk. And like, you remember when he boxed on my undercard and he had my name on his shots, and it meant the world to me. Do you know what I mean? It meant a lot to me. That it's funny, this boxing game. It is mad, but that night certainly highlighted, that horrible side to me, which I've seen. It's even now, like, when I've seen some horrible knockouts, and I remember my mate Stephen Smith knocking out Gary Buckland, and it was the best knockout I've ever seen up close. But it was a scary knockout, and I remember just thinking, you know, things just flash back to you, thinking, do you know what I mean? So it can be brutal, this sport, but yeah, that was that was a hard time.
Did you think about stopping boxing at that time?
I didn't. Do you know what? I just wasn't bothered about boxing for the first time in my life. I can't say it was for months or whatever, but for a good few weeks where I'd trained but I wasn't really there. Do you know what I mean? Or it probably was a few months. Like I trained, but it was just autopilot. I think, like Joe said, I'd lost something. Do you know what I mean? I'd lost something, and it's thankful. Like say, Kieran's made a full recovery, but if he wouldn't, listen, a full recovery and more, he's absolutely flying. If he wouldn't, then I'd probably never be. I probably wouldn't have stepped in the ring again, and I wouldn't. It's hard because it was such a big part of my life. Like, but even like training the kids felt a bit mad and stuff. I'm thinking, I don't want to encourage these kids. I don't want to encourage these kids to, you know, to be doing this sport and stuff like that. Yeah, it was. There was a few months where I think I was just on autopilot and just sort of training, going through everything, but no idea what I was really doing. Probably wasn't taking it in.
Well, yeah, thankfully he's made a full recovery. He's now training, promoting, putting on his shows. He is flying now. So we're going to move to when you started getting towards world title fights. That wasn't straightforward for you either. So you had your first world title scheduled. That fight was scheduled, and then it got cancelled because of an injury. The injury outside of the ring, where basically a burglary happened, and then you ended up getting injured from it.
Yeah, I come off second best to a concrete slab, but yeah, so obviously, I had my first world title fight over. So Christmas was cancelled that year. It was happening in January, and like you just said, there was a burglary involved. They stuck my nose in, stopped it happening, and I think, like you say, everyone sort of knows the story. But that was a time then when I think back now, when even like when the incident happened, I was in the ring. Like one of my best mates was round at my house to pick up tickets. And I'm sat there telling him how, you know, he's like, Crolla, should have take these tickets. I'm like, yeah, of course you should. What you on about? Yeah, of course. I just won't be able to run for a week or something or out like that. I didn't know how bad it was. Obviously, my head's cut wide open. And it's not ideal, but you know, the head guard will cover that bit. But I might just have to ease off sparring and blah blah. And he was looking at me with people in the house thinking you're mental, but there's no way, but they just didn't have the heart to tell me and stuff like that. But yeah, that whole thing, and then when obviously I got told I couldn't, I was fucking heartbroken. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely heartbroken. Where it wasn't when I got told the severity of it, like how bad it was. It was like I'll never box again, and I just moved into the house with my little family, and it was probably a bit of pride where I'm thinking, I'm gonna have to send them back to her mum, and not you just, you know, your pride as a dad and stuff. And I was like, couldn't believe it. And yeah, it's with that, it was a bad time. But I think, like you say, everyone's heard the story, but it was just a crazy time where I remember sort of being in hospital and like hardly sleeping, and then waking up and seeing it was all over the news. It was big news. I was like, I just couldn't get my head around it. And then they had to move me into a private room and all that because the press was trying to get, you know, and I just couldn't like taking out how sort of big it was. But then when it was for a few months there, I was, like I said, I was like on the road to recovery. I was always thinking, if I get a chance, I always trained hard, but if I get a chance, I'm going to give it absolutely everything to make sure, because I can see how close it is from being ripped away from. But at that same time, I had to have another brain scans because of a fractured skull, And I'm thinking like this, but I might never be allowed to box again. I might never be allowed. What am I going to do? Yeah. And we what's it called? Like, thankfully, yeah, I did. But it was a big sort of rebuilding process. I'm not the biggest like now, but I went dead skinny, and I remember just thinking I had to get off, like, all the painkillers and stuff like that, because all I was doing was just making me sleep, and I was just losing more and more weight. I looked like what's it called, Christian Bale in The Fighter or something like that. I was just skinny as anything, and I thought I had to get off them. And it was sort of like, from being able to walk without the crutches and everything like that, it was sort of rebuilding again. But no, I was bad. I remember, like, whether it be like partner or mum, like, helping me wash me and that. And I was like, I think you're a proud man, aren't you? And it was hard, but yeah, we like I say, got the clearance to fight, and that's when I thought. I remember being the first day when I was allowed to spar again, and it sounds stupid, I've never been so excited to get punched in the head, but nervous as well, thinking, oh, what's going to happen? But yeah, good. No, crazy times.
And yeah, you did recover, you got back in the gym, and then you got another chance at the world title fight. Again, not smooth sailing. So you had your first world title fight, which actually ended in a draw. Controversial draw. Yeah.
It was a controversial draw, and it was mad, right, Ali, because I went from being known as the boxer who's got attacked by burglars, fractured skull and all that, to the boxer who got robbed of the world title. I remember, like, at the time, social media is great. Jesus, we're Andy Crolla's neighbours now. Now we've just been robbed of the world title and stuff like that. But it was, do you know what? It sounds mad, and I was so disappointed. But at the same time, it didn't. The disappointment was nowhere near as bad as what it should have been, because I was just happy to be boxing again. Like, that was my first fight after everything, and it wasn't like, at the time, I was just buzzing to be out there boxing again and walking out in front of, like, an amazing atmosphere at the arena, and thinking, well, I nearly lost this chance. It's mad, I wasn't really that nervous. Because I just thought, no, I'm just thankful to be boxing, which at one point certainly looked like it never would. But then I remembered going away, and everywhere I went, there was just people, oh, you won that, son, you won that. Like, even weeks after, I'd be out in the supermarket, and people would come up to me, and I thought, it was mad, I thought, I can't have this for the rest of my life, that, I want to be known as a world champion. I don't want to be known as the nearly man. And I thought, if I get this opportunity, and I knew there was a great chance of there being an opportunity for a straight rematch because of the controversy around the rematch, and thankfully, Gilbert, what the WBA done, the right thing, and I always knew that if I'd got that second chance, I wouldn't get another chance after that, so I knew I had to take that.
The rematch, and did you go in with a sort of different mind frame that time?
Do you know, with the rematch, I did, yeah, because I knew that was my last chance. I knew I would not get another chance if I didn't make it pay, and people was going away going, oh, he might have got Perez on an off night, and that was his moment, and it was robbed of him, and now he's going to come up better. But I was thinking, man, I'm going to be better as well. You're forgetting it's my first fight after everything that happened, and I'm going to get stronger, and I believe I'm different. My body was changing and stuff like that. When we're on about sort of maturing late, and the great sort of strength work I was doing, with Martin Cullen, and so I was getting strong. He was like, you're a different beast to the one who fought him in July. And I remember sort of like with it, I was just living like I'd never lived before and stuff like that. I remember my friend Sean really, he was like into plants and all that, and I was just sort of become so sort of track-minded, and Joe told me, like, I remember Joe, like, that was my chance to become world champion. And before the fight, he was like, listen, before the fight, we were walking out, and I was so calm, and Eddie Hearn it was, and he told me after it, but I'd never felt so relaxed. Like, this was the biggest moment of my career, possibly my last chance, but it was weird, I'd never felt so relaxed. And he said to me after it, he said, Crolla, you don't understand. He said, I was so worked up in that gym room because I thought, he's going to let this pass him by. He's going to let this pass him by. He's relaxed, he's talking. But I knew there was no way I was coming back to that change room without being a world champion. And I had this feeling where it was just like, no, I'm going to go out there and I'll come back here. I remember my mate Liam Smith a few weeks before, he'd just become world champion. I thought, no, I want that feeling. I'm going to have that feeling in a few weeks. I was made up like for him, and I thought, I wonder what it's going to feel like when I do it. Do you know what I mean? And that was it. That was it. And I never ever seen it any other way doing that. And then when I did win it, it was one of the greatest nights of my life, without a shadow of a doubt, and one of the greatest feelings. I think you see by the reaction, the roar let out. I think there's a bit of shouting, excitement, probably tears. It's because you know what it is, Ali? There's people who like backed me for so long, and I felt like I'd repaid them. Do you know what I mean? Whether Joe, that'd be Joe. Joe had took me on when it looked like I was going nowhere. It looked like I was going nowhere. And then my mum, my dad, I was like, I made them proud. And like my mum being on the bus with me when I was a kid and standing in the cold and getting back on the bus with me. Jimmy Lewis next door, like he'd had me from a kid and I was still in with the kids. I could take this world title to show the kids and stuff. And yeah, I remember like sort of night when I don't think I slept for about 40 hours or so. Honestly, it was mad. And then yeah, it was just the best. It was just an unbelievable night.
How much did your life change when you then became, world champion?
Quite a lot, to be honest. Yeah, quite a lot. Sort of the recognition, there's a bit of fame that come with it and stuff like that. And there was, obviously, and then with a world champion, you defend it, and when life become a little bit easier. Like I say, before that, I was thinking, what's going to happen? I've just moved into a house, before when the accident happened and all that. So it wasn't like, oh, made it in life or all like that, but it was just a little bit of but it made me more hungry to make things a little bit easier. Do you know what I mean? So I always, with boxing, I always got into boxing and thought, obviously I want to be a world champion, but financially, if I can get a house paid for out of boxing, life's just a little bit easier. My mum and dad grafted for 30 odd years, and they only however many few years ago paid their house off. And I know how hard it is. It's hard. Life's hard like that. And I just thought, well, if I can do that by the time boxing, and thankfully I've done a little bit more, but it was just life will just be a little bit easier for you, and that then become my aim.
So after that, you're world champion, yeah. Things going well. We'll talk towards the sort of end of your career then, yeah. And the fights, losing your title, and then the sort of fights before you retired. Yeah. You retired quite young in terms of were you 32?
I would have been now, so I am 35 now. Yeah, I was 32. I was 32, which is young really, but it's almost 3 years. I've always been retired 3 years, and it's gone so quick, Ali. When I look, it's just gone in the blink of an eye. But I should have retired in the summer. 100%. But again, make a few mistakes, and you just I remember Eddie, I'd gone to Ibiza. And Eddie, I got a message as I landed in Ibiza. It's probably like a few beers in, and he said, "Oh, Manchester, November the whatever," and I just thought, yeah, I was staying fit, and I said, all right, yes, basically sign me up. I'm up for that, and that was it. And I thought it might be my last fight or whatever. This will be my last fight or whatever, and it was mad, right? And I've told this story a few times, but have you been to Ibiza?
Yeah.
Do you know, everyone says the Burger King of death, don't they? Where there's just corpses, there's dead bodies, where people have not ate for 3 or 4 days. I mean, I wasn't one of them. I was semi-behaved, but I remember walking. I was a little bit rough and stuff, and I'm looking at these corpses in the Burger King, and I thought, I'm going home to training tomorrow. What the hell have I done? Do you know what I mean? What have I agreed to? But I'd give him a word, and I was never going to go back on it. So I'd gone to get my words out. Yeah, as I was coming home, and even on the way home, I was thinking, if this show gets cancelled, then that'll be me. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, went through with it. Had the last fight. I I don't know, you can't have no regrets. I can't say regret in the last fight. I genuinely believe, like, this is no disrespect to my opponent, who is Frank Kirkwega. He boxed a really good fight. There's a good few thought he beat me that night. Do you know what I mean? But I genuinely believe 3 years in, I could have a training camp now, and I would make much easier work of it. I genuinely believe that 3 years on. And I hardly do any training now. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of emotions that night, and a lot of just listen. You live, you learn. Not learn where I wish I would have had the last fight, but things for a reason, and there we are. But I probably, when I look back before Lomachenko, I think that I remember sort of the morning after. That's who gave me Joe. I remember Daz Phillips, who was in the corner. Daz was a good guy. He said, I'd said something about the gum shield, and he went, listen, there's your gum shield. I said, I'd take this because you won't need this again. And I went, because I said, I'm probably not going to. Do you know what I mean? And then I remember walking, I went for a coffee with Joe and that, and I said, mate, I was majorly disappointed because I trained so hard, and listen, I wish I would have done some things different.
Against Lomachenko?
Yeah, against Lomachenko. Listen, Ali, don't think for 1 minute I'm saying if I would have done them, I would have beat him. Listen, if I would have, and people had tried it, and he just sort of El Matadored him. And listen, there's a great chance we would have done that. He might have knocked me out earlier, but I believe I would have at least had some success, which I had very, very little. If that, when I did box him, so there's things I wish I would have done different, but it didn't. And I caught for a very ruthless Lomachenko. He was unbelievable that night, and that was it. And he's an all-time great, or he will be. He'll go down as that. But I remember sort of thinking, do you know what? I'm in this game. It's tough, and I'm here, Joe. I said, what do I do now? I said, I feel good at lightweight. I said, do I just try to hang around, try and get a few good paydays? I said, I never wanted to be that. I've always said boxing's too hard to do that. I saw with people close to me, Ali. I saw people, the effect boxing's had on them. I've seen it with mates. I've seen it with, where the speech is really affected. The balance is a bit affected. I think my marbles, some people might question it, are still intact. And I thought I never want to be that person. And I certainly never want to be a stepping stone to someone. No way. Or losing to people who I believe at my best I never would have lost to. And I just, go away, and you'd have to make a decision. But then at the same time, I didn't want to go out like that. Do you know what I mean? But I suppose there was no shame in it because of how good Lomachenko was. I wanted to just sort of give a better account of myself, but I forgot what I'm waffling on here. When I'm sort of, I was sort of saying, but then, I knew that had hit me hard because I trained, I had done everything. So it's probably there's things I wish I would have done different now when I look back. But it's everything. He was just that good. He was that good, and he also it just made me think. While he's around, I'm not winning another world title. So what do we hang around for? And that was it. Like people say, you retired early, you could come back now. You've stayed in shape and that, and you live. Probably I've drink a bit too much now, but no, I do stay half fit. But I was done from that moment. When I think now, I was done from that morning. The morning after I went for a coffee, I was absolutely done.
Yeah, because not many fighters get to have a sort of farewell fight. Not many retirements are on their terms, but also the way that it was for you, I've not really seen from many other fighters. The fact that you had the whole thing. I
sort of got thinking it is a farewell fight, and there was probably too many emotions involved in it, which was why. And I remember round 2 sitting down and just thinking, I want this done. I just want it done. I've never felt like that. And after the fight, I don't know the worst I've ever boxed in my career. But the disappointment of that went after an hour or two, and that's not right either. So that's how I know I shouldn't have been in there, because I was just relieved it was done. I can now just sort of don't have to box again and stuff like that. And it was. I was happy it was done. and that was mad. And it's mad because I can't say I lost my love for boxing because I love it now. Like I've ended up with an handful of professional fighters when I didn't plan on having one. I planned on just taking the amateurs, and
Is that what you wanted to do?
yeah, the plan was always just to stay involved with the amateurs and train a few champions from the amateurs. It was never the plan to, and I thought, I'll help Joe out a bit in the corner. I said, we can help us out. And next thing I've ended up with, I think about 6 professional fighters now. Mental. I'm in the gym more than ever, and I love it. But I'm lucky. Like I get a massive buzz for that, and that's why I think I don't miss. I always say, people go, "Do you miss it?" And I go, "No." I feel bad saying it because I've got friends who miss it, who've not come away with, and I don't even mean financially, they've not come away with half as much as me, and they miss it, and I don't miss it, and I feel a bit of guilt for that, and it's because I sort of stayed around the gym. I'm still around the big nights. Like I've been in the corner with my mates, winning world titles, passing up to Joe. I've got fighters of my own now. I'm still around sort of with the kids, still get the buzz like with the kids and stuff like that in the amateurs. I do, like you say, do a bit of media work. We work together and stuff, so you have the best seat in the house. So I'm still around the big shows and stuff like that. So I enjoy it. I've just not got to be as disciplined as what I once was, and I was very disciplined. I was super disciplined, and I remember sort of last fight again. One of my best mate was in Portugal with the lads every year, and I still decided what I'm going to do. And have a drink. I make myself out to feel right lush here, right? But he's a lad's away and stuff like that. And he said he's always dead honest with me. And he went, you know what? He said, if you drunk how you did now, you never would have got to where you was. Do you know what I mean? And I went, no, mate, you're right. But because I was obsessed, and at that point I didn't know what I was going to do, and I don't think even when I was as disciplined and as hard training as anyone, and I'd do everything. You never had me blowing up or out like that. And it was just little things like that which ticked boxes, and me thinking, my time's sort of done. My time's done here, and although I was still young and I still believe I could have carried on at a good level, it wasn't the level that I wanted to be at. And that's not being disrespectful to anyone, because I say winning an English title's hard. Not just, winning an English title. There's plenty of good fighters who don't win an English title. Winning a British title is obviously even harder. And it's, I won a world title, and there's, you join a select group. But it's when I knew I could no longer win that world title, I didn't believe I could win that world title again. That's when I was 100% certain, I shouldn't box no more.
Busier than ever, training, doing media, coaching. Full circle, so you've got the Fox ABC gym.
Yes, I've got them here now. It's a lot.
Here in a different venue, because there's been a few instances. You've had quite a lot of instances in your life.
Yeah, the drama that always surrounds me, Ali.
Yeah, so two fires in the gyms.
Yeah. So the first one, it was. Oh God, I'm saying it again. I think everyone was drinking over lockdown, weren't they? But I woke up the next morning and I'm not saying I'm a dead early riser, but I get up at a reasonable time, and I lay in this and I looked at my phone, like 30 odd missed calls, so many messages. I'm like, wow, what's going on here? And then I've looked and there's been a fire, what's happened with the gym? And I'm like, so I rang my mate straight away, who's in there. I said, mate, what's going on? I woke up to, he goes, mate, he says, I'm at the gym. He says, one of the amateur coaches, he says, the gym's burned down. And what, like, what's been saved? He goes, mate, the mill's down to the ground, and the fire's here now. And I had a lot of stuff in there, and I was like, and that's one of the things I said, did anything get to you? Mate, you need to get here. I don't think you understand. I was putting it out for a few days, so that was one thing. And so then it was like looking for somewhere, and then I ended up with a place I'm in now because one of my mates, it's a football club, Abrose Football Club. He said, mate, you went the old function room. He said, but it works as a gym. I come down straight away. I was like, yeah, this will work as a gym. And it's only like about a mile or two away from the other gym, so a lot of the kids could still come here. And like I said before, it's a great place for a boxing gym. And there was like potential. They sort of thought it's a classroom, so we have some of the kids in that they like risk of exclusion, or through certain groups and stuff like that. And where I was going with that now, jeez. So then we got this, and then I don't know, however, it was 2 fights in the space of, I don't know how long, but it was short. Put it this way, if it happened again, people would be thinking, people thought it was suspects anyway. Ali. So we, next thing, again, I woke up, my phone's gone again, and I thought, is this real? Deja vu? Or I'm looking, and I went, there's been a fire again. And I think I remember not like that. I'm just throwing my phone, bouncing off the wall, and just going, what the? So I drove here, Sherry, but thankfully it wasn't severe, and there was no suspicious, like the first one was arson. It wasn't on our gym, it was on these building, and it was very strange, to be honest. There was a lot of businesses in there, a lot of gyms in there, people who lost their livelihood. I remember my mate had a Thai boxing gym next door, and he had his belts in from winning that. He was a great Thai boxer and stuff, whereas I'd lost a lot of stuff and valuables, and it was costly, but it weren't my world title belt, or it wasn't, do you know what I mean? Things that are priceless. And so what happened then, there was the next time, the changing rooms, the footballers' changing rooms, the fault with the boiler, and it passed through, so it was not smoke and water damage. So the hope was this is going to be, but we didn't know for a good few months if it was going to be salvageable. So we was in a marquee at the side there, but it was a great marquee, like, and we had like an unbelievable, somehow it kept the heat in there. So it wasn't till the gym finally got redone, it was just the last week or two where the gas fire would have to go on to take the chill off, but it was like a greenhouse in there in the summer. And we've managed, and the club from being young. So why I got the gym originally, because we had to move, and Jimmy, he'd give his life to boxing, do you know what I mean? He'd give his life to helping kids to do amateur boxing. I thought at that point, can he really be looking for a new place and that? So I took over that gym, and then we're here now, and yeah, it's flying. So here we are now, and yeah, to the next 40 odd years in boxing. I must be mental, but yeah, that is what it is.
Yeah, so you're going to be in it for a while. You've got a group of pros that are flying at the moment. Your gym is flying.
Doing really well. So I've got, obviously, using then seeing Rhiannon Dixon, I really believe she's going to be a talent. James Moorcroft, he's improving massively. Jake James is in now. Alex Delmagani, he's manager for the British title. Bobby Faulkner, he's a talent. Sahir Iqbal just needs an opportunity, but I really believe he can do something. I've got my younger brother, William. He's, you think my story's mad? Try speaking to him. He's here, and I never, to be honest, I never wanted my brother to fight, but it's what he wants to do, and you've got to back your little brother, haven't you? So yeah, I live through the emotions. With any of my fighters, I live through the emotions, but obviously when it's your brother, it's a little bit different. I've not missed anyone out, have I? No, I've not.
Yeah, I think that's everyone.
I've not. So yeah, no, I enjoy it with them. It's a great group. And it's one of them with boxing, being a boxing coach. People don't realise it's the most. Do you know, if you had a minimum wage, like what you get paid, you break it down, you probably get paid about £1.50 a session. But you must be mad to be into it. But I just want to get the best out of them. I genuinely mean it. I just want to get the best out of them, and they're a good group who I've got, and we have some great times. And I just, I genuinely mean that. It's not something like I want to get the best out of them, and with that, I believe titles will come. But just some great nights. Do you know what I mean? I've had some good nights as a coach already, but I've not. Like, hopefully my first titles will start coming soon, but when that's time, there'll be time, do you know, to get them. I know no rush. I'm a novice, do you know what I mean? I'm learning as a coach. I've been around boxing, jeez, how old am I? I've been around boxing since I was 10, well, before I was 10, so you do the maths, over 25 years. But I believe I picked up a lot, but as a coach, I'm learning. I've got an awful lot to learn. You never stop learning in this game, and it's good. Like I say, it's just that, juggling that with a bits of media stuff and that. It's just boxing. So yeah.
You said you didn't want your little brother to fight, but he is. If your son wants to fight, will you be all right with that?
No, I won't be all right with it whatsoever. But I probably got my head around it a little bit more now. And thankfully, he doesn't. He plays a lot of football. He's a decent little footballer, Jesse. And I think do you know what it is? He's been in the gym with me twice, and he's an athletic kid, so I know I could make him a boxer, or wherever he went, it could be a boxer. You just know the way a kid holds himself, and the only time he's perhaps on close, we're having a little fight and stuff like that. But it's mad because I sound like I'm just contradicting. I'm just saying how great amateur boxing is. It learns respect and this and that. But hopefully, he never ever wants to compete. If he wants to have a few skill bouts, a few amateur bouts, then yeah. But I know the pressure, like what comes with it, like, and that was one of the reasons I hated my younger brother fighting, because there was pressure, there was expectation on him, and there will be now. And I see it now with Campbell Latin. And Campbell, when he first turned professional, I always remember, I think it was Ricky who told me, he was having his second fight, and word got about, he's fighting a kid from the North East Summit, he was fighting Ricky Atkinson. 2 coach loads of people come for a 12-year-old, and no matter what, like, you can be a mad 12, but you're going to think, what is going on? Do you know what I mean? And there becomes that expectation, so there will be with him, so he knows he's going to have to deal with that, and it won't bother me and he's done that well, because he's really sorted himself out, he really has, from where he was. So he probably needs boxing, but it won't bother me one little bit if he goes, and you know what, I'll just help you out. I'll be like, happy days, do you know what I mean? It'd probably make me happier, to be honest. But with my son, geez, I don't know, it's hard, isn't it? Because not a lot of father and son relationships in boxing work. There's been some unbelievable ones, but then there's some that turn wrong, and I'd never ever. I'd like to think never want to, but then you've got to. Even with him now, I'm probably a bit horrible to him. It's more than the others, because I can never have the finger of people thinking, I'll let him off or favour him or whatever. Because you do it, but I just think it's a tough old game, isn't it? And it's like, hopefully Jesse never wants to box, but there might come a time where he does come in, and if he does, we'll see. But yeah, hopefully he's
stick to his football.
Yeah, he sticks to his football. I don't know if he's made for getting punched on the nose.
Well, Anthony, thank you very much for your time. It's been great catching up with you.
Thanks for having us, and pleasure as always.
Thank you. Make sure you like and subscribe to Boxing Social. See you next time.